everybody. Warm welcome to our seminar on questions around whether a green transition is possible as part of the recovery process for Corona, and what is the role for EU-Africa relations in that. And this seminar is coming very timely, not just because this is one of the big questions on the table for the EU and African actors, but also because we are preparing, European and African actors are preparing for the next summit that is supposed to take place at the end of October. And there is a question of what role these issues will play in the preparation and during the summit, and therefore also in the midterm of EU-Africa relations. My name is Christine Hackenisch. I'm a head of a program at the German Development Institute. And I have the pleasure to guide us through this afternoon and to guide you through the discussion this afternoon. This is a webinar that is organized by the European Think Tanks Group, ETTG, which is a network of 5 European think tanks working on various issues of global development. And one of the members of ETTG is IDRI, the Institute for Sustainable Development and International Relations, and IDRI has taken a leading role in preparing for this webinar today. Before we start, let me raise a few points for housekeeping and a few technical issues. First, this meeting will be recorded, and it will also be published on YouTube, just for your information. You will find translation for French and English. So if you're interested to listen in French, then please check the button at the, you can change that in your system in case you have downloaded the Zoom app on your computer. So in that case, you can change the language you want to listen in. And we are glad that we have quite a large audience today with actors from civil society, think tanks, political and decision makers from European side and also from African side. So we are very happy that there's a broad interest in discussing this topic. And you as an audience also have the opportunity to come in, and we very much encourage you to ask questions and raise comments. There is the chat function and the comment function, and please do not hesitate to raise your points also already during the presentations, so that we can take note of them and bring them into the debate. So please come in and contribute actively to the discussion. So the main theme for today is the questions around what role for a green transition and climate policy in post-corona COVID-19 recovery process. And there are 3 broad guiding questions that we would like to discuss with distinguished experts. So the first issue that we are interested in is actually the Corona crisis and the recovery programs that are now emerging on the European and African side, making it easier or actually more difficult to move towards a green transition and bring sustainable development pathways back in. So is it easier or more difficult? I think we see a number of opportunities and challenges, and it will be interesting to also compare how things stand on the European side and on the African side with regard to this question. Secondly, we will discuss about key strategy processes that are ongoing on the European side and on the African side. Both have initiated a number of strategy processes. The EU has launched a Green Deal, or is discussing about a Green Deal with a strong objective of linking climate policy with economic policy transition. There is a question of what can be expected from this initiative. And then on the African side, there are preparations for a climate change strategy, but there are also a number of other strategy processes ongoing related to the Agenda 2063, where there are clear objectives on a number of sustainable, it is about sustainable goals for sustainable development. There's a 10-year implementation plan and other initiatives. And the question is, what can be expected from these European strategies and African strategies, and where are points of of convergence and opportunities for cooperation. And then lastly, third big question is what are actually implications for EU-Africa cooperation and then leading up to the summit. So to what extent offers a debate around a green transition, opportunities for EU-Africa cooperation, and what are expectations from both continents on support and on this cooperation. And we will discuss these questions with very distinguished experts. We will start with the introductory remarks from Gerard Laporte, who is a director of the European Think Tanks Group and also deputy director of ECDPM, the European Center for Development Policy Management. And we will then have three panelists who will be Carla Montesi, who is a director for Planet and Prosperity at the Director General for Development Cooperation at DEFCO for International Cooperation and Development. And before that, she has been a director at DG DEFCO for West Africa and Central Africa, so a long-standing experience on cooperation with African partners, but also on the climate and prosperity issues. We will discuss with Yuba Sukona, who is vice chair of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, and who is also special advisor for sustainable development at the South Center. And you will hear from Jean-Paul Adam, who is director for technology, climate change, and natural resource management at the UN Economic Commission for Africa. And also a former Minister of Health and Social Affairs and Foreign Minister from the Seychelles. We will, at the very end of this meeting, Sébastien Trayer, Director of IDRI, is going to share with us his reflections and a summary of the debate. Many thanks to all of you for joining today, and I'm very much looking forward to the exchange and would like to first hand over to Gerard to kick us off in the discussion. Thank you. Gerard, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christine. It's a pleasure to have again such a big audience. These webinars apparently seem to reach out to always a lot of people. I hope that we will be able to excite the different people in the audience. What I will do is very briefly, as a non-expert on climate issues, introduce some of the concerns, some of the convergences in the agenda between Europe and Africa, but also pointing to some of the divergences between both continents. As you all know, we will have this summit normally foreseen for the last week of October in Brussels. It's not clear whether the summit will effectively take place in the current climate and the current COVID context. But a lot of work is being invested in the preparations of this summit. And as most of you probably know, the European Union has presented a comprehensive strategy with Africa just a few days before we all went in lockdown, early March. And also Africa is quite active. We also have, of course, the Green Deal on the European side, which Christina mentioned. And it's very encouraging to see that also the African Union is coming forward with an African Union climate change strategy. It's still in the making. It will be released hopefully quite soon. But this points to the clear commitment to deal with these climate change and green agendas in both continents. But of course, we have COVID-19, and we will have to look how much this will impact on the climate agendas between both continents. And I think the questions that were raised at the start by Christina are very relevant. Is COVID-19 and the recovery programs attached to it going to make it more difficult or more easy to work on a green transition and sustainable energy access in both continents? And this is particularly important, I would say, for Africa. Will it be possible in a post-19 context for Africa to combine the need for economic recovery with the costly transition towards green economies? And this is quite a major challenge. And what role could and should the EU play in supporting this complex transition process? On paper, when looking at the strategy of the European Union and also the preliminary drafts and documents that we have seen from the African Union, including also, of course, the Agenda 2063 and other documents, you could assume that there is quite some convergence between both continents on green agendas. The EU Green Deal is designed to make Europe a global leader on climate, and the EU wants to be the world's first climate neutral continent by 2050. This is a major ambition, and building sustainable and clean energy sectors, green and sustainable cities, circular economies, sustainable food systems, sustainable jobs, biodiversity. All this is really an ambitious agenda that will require massive resources. And the EU is indeed reserving massive resources to realize that ambition. €1 trillion should be invested in the Sustainable Europe Investment Plan. But of course, the European Union as the most important global trade player needs allies. It is extremely important for the EU to undertake climate diplomacy. It has to work with global partners outside the European Union, the G20, the group of least developed countries, the small island development states, and definitely Africa. Africa that is systematically presented to be the most close and the strongest partner of the European Union in the global system. So we need Africa to also come on board on these green agendas. And this is on paper, I would say it doesn't look so difficult, but when you then look at the realities on the ground, then it becomes much more difficult to ensure that strong intercontinental alliance. The reality is quite different from the paper and the theory. In practice, we see that Africa might have quite a number of big worries. First of all, the EU Green Deal does not really take account of the implications for Africa. And I think that for the African side, this is perceived to be not very loyal, that the African perspectives have not been fully taken on board in the European Green Deal. We want Africa to be our partner, but at the same time, the Green Deal does not really take account of African realities. And African realities relate very much to climate adaptation, to agriculture and food security, the fight against poverty, and improve trade relations, of course. So this is definitely the focus from the African side. And secondly, the worry that comes up most on the African side is that the Green Deal will lead to European protectionism. There is a risk that the Green Deal will introduce more non-tariff barriers via the carbon border tax, high environmental standards. And this is at a time when the creation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is supposed to boost EU-Africa trade relations. So there's a fear that there will be increasing restrictions and that this will prevent access of particularly middle-income countries in Africa to the European market. Another trade concern that we hear in Africa is that the pandemic might prioritize stimuli to local production in the European Union, which might also affect European exports to the European Union. And then a third major concern relates to development cooperation. There will be a major cost, and climate financing investments and innovation programs across the African continent will be huge. And the EU probably might be mainly concerned with its own recovery. So substantial flexible financing from the EU is absolutely needed, particularly for those countries which face difficulties of meeting the green standards. And there, a lot of efforts should be envisaged: financing of green infrastructure, education and training in high-skilled green economy sectors. If we want to transit to a carbon-free and real green economy in the next decades, there will be major investments to be made in terms of adaptation and mitigation mechanisms. So the real negotiations still need to start. the real negotiations on financing, on strategic orientations between both continents will still need to take place. And it is encouraging to see that there is on the African side a clear interest to engage in this discussion, because Africa is very much concerned to play its part in this big and important debate. So for the time being, I think this debate will help us to orient the state of the debate between the two continents, and will look into the implications of the green transformation in both continents. I'm very much looking forward to the discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gert, for setting us up, and also for pointing to this difference between convergence of objectives and strategies on the one hand, but then significant gaps or difficulties when it comes to implementation. And I very much also share your view that, I mean, at the end of the day, we're still at the very beginning of implementing these strategies. So the next months will really be key to see how they are going to play out. I'm very curious to now hear the panel on these aspects. And I would like to start with Carla. And Carla, it would be great and very interesting if you could share your reflections on what is the opportunity of the Green Deal for EU-Africa cooperation. How would you see the role of the Green Deal for EU-Africa cooperation, and maybe also where you might see some difficulties or challenges when moving ahead? Carla, the floor is yours.
Okay, many thanks. And let me say that I will adapt a little what it was my intention to say, because I get to say almost what was my intention to say. So I will try to not repeat what just saying at the beginning. And but the debate is it's exactly how was foreseen, was set up by Gert. First, let's start with the COVID and the European Union position before coming to Africa. Of course, when we look to the COVID situation, it's of course this pandemic is first and foremost a human tragedy. Of course, it's also the recovery of this pandemic is the chance for the government to really show that are capable of addressing the health, the economic, the social impact challenges, and to succeed to do to build inclusive and resilient society. So the issue is today that we want to have a post-COVID economic recovery that will go hand in hand with a transition to a sustainable, social, just, resilient, and climate neutral economy. This is the Europe position. We know that globally in the next 2 years, governments around the world, we will have to spend more than 10 trillion borrowed from the future generation. So it's very important that we get this recovery right. You have listened from the last intervention of our President van der Leyen, but clearly supported by all the European Union head of state and government, that they have reconfirmed that the intention is clear to ensure a recovery that is green, it's digital, it's just, it's resilient. With a lot of public investment for the recovery, but public investment that should respect the green oath to do no harm. So Green Deal, digital transformation agenda, in practice it was decided just before the COVID situation, but it's clearly reiterates that this recovery also from the COVID has to be in fully recognition of what was the ambition of the Green Deal and the digital transformation agenda, really sustainable, inclusive, and resilient for the future. And the latest proposal that were made by the Commission concerning the new financial proposal are absolutely coherent with this. You have seen that in the next generation EU, or in the revamped EU budget, clearly the Commission proposed to the Member States, to the Parliament, that every euro of investment that will be made in the future, of course, we will have to get Europe back on its feet while accelerating between green and the digital transition, with a proposal to have more than 25% of the EU budget dedicated to climate and to climate-related action. So this green recovery, this green transition, the climate ambition will remain very high for Europe, but will remain very high for Europe, also for the multilateral cooperation, for the international cooperation. So will be reflected also with Africa. Gert already mentioned the fact that just before, at the starting of the COVID, the European Commission has adopted this comprehensive strategy with Africa. You know, I think very well that we have identified 5 clear partnerships. The first one is the partnership for green transition and energy access. We have, after the partnership for digital transformation, for sustainable growth and job, for peace and governance, a partnership for migration. But the first building block partnership, it's for the green transition and the energy access. Now, the question could be asked, this strategy will remain relevant today after the COVID? The answer is yes. It's more than ever, also because this pandemic has really demonstrated how this strategy, in our view, will remain absolutely relevant also in the post-COVID recovery situation. So in this partnership, really, we have given a big impetus to the green transition, the digital transformation, also as a catalytic for business and investment, because in this strategy, we're talking about the green transition, the digital transformation, but we're talking also about the growth alliance, the growth jobs, with a clear engagement on what we can do to support the development of Africa through investment. But an investment that we want to have are green investment, sustainable investment. When we look to this strategy, you have seen that we have foreseen initiative. Let me mention just one initiative that is very much linked to the climate. It's the energy that is foreseen in the energy sector. The idea to develop an EU African Green Initiative, energy initiative, with 2 big overarching priorities. One is, of course, to contribute to have a higher share of renewable in energy generation. The second one will be to increase the number of African people that can get access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy services. Of course, for the productive use, but also for the household. The climate will remain there, in the sense that we really want to work with the African countries, supporting them to the national determined contribution, because we still think that the national determined contribution, so the investment plan are still relevant today, are still central today, if the African countries want to move also to a transformation of their economy that will be sustainable for tomorrow. So if we succeed to, of course, to work on adaptation as was mentioned, but also to work in the sense that we avoid the mistake that were made by the other countries. This will be key. So to ensure also the development of some African countries in the right way. So in the perspective of the European Commission and the preparation of this summit, climate green transition will remain a key point. I think yourself and Gert has already mentioned the summit. We are absolutely engaged on the preparation of this summit, and we are working from now with the African Union Commission on this key subject that are linked with the climate. So Gert already mentioned this strategy for the climate change. Of course, it's right. This Green Deal today is arising some suspicion by the African side. Of course, this is absolutely true. So I'm very happy that we will have some month to go in the preparation of this month, but we have still a debate today at that level. And this summit will be the occasion to identify common ground on how to achieve this transition and to a green and sustainable recovery, to a green economy. Of course, we will have to face in some countries the African realities. Gert already mentioned what will happen for the agriculture. Of course, we will have to pay attention of this. Of course, the intention for many African countries will be, I have a big challenges, and the big challenge is that I have to feed my people. I have to feed a growing population. So the proposal today is to work with these partner countries to have a more sustainable agriculture. In which way we can succeed to feed the population, but feed the population with a sustainable agriculture. So there will be different strands of work to do in our relationship with Africa. Could be everything that is linked to energy, everything that is linked to the climate in the sense of the preparation of the climate, how to ensure that everything that we do for investment will look to sustainable investment, how we can work on the circular economy, on agriculture, on the management of the forest, on biodiversity. And I can say that there is many areas of convergent priorities with Africa. So of course, Gert already mentioned they will be scared, they will be worried, but we will need to have a bigger, stronger dialogue, because of course today with the Green Deal, we have the reaction, we have the suspicion, Europe is doing a Green Deal just to have more obstacle for the import from the African countries, as to block the imports, or has to become to have these imports in a more and more restrictive way. Of course, these are the fears that our partners have at this moment, and this is why in the future design of our cooperation, we will have to deal with this. We have to continue work on the domain, on the trade cooperation, on the capacity building, on how to ensure that also if in Europe we will have more severe regulation and more restriction, of course the African production can be able to deal with this restriction. So a lot of work to do, but what we are seeing from the present debate is that in any case, our partner countries in Africa also want to have this green transition, this green continent. So there will be hard discussion, but the work that is ongoing in the preparation of the summit demonstrates that there is really many areas of intervention and the convergence. Of course, we cannot imagine that we arrive with a policy or criteria that, or a model that is one size fits all for everything. Of course, this will not be the case. Of course, we will have to really analyze a green recovery effort that has to be tailor-made to specific country context, with a granular analysis, with a deepened bilateral dialogue. But we hope that in any case, what Europe wants to promote, it's a joint green recovery, a joint green development of the African partners that will be inspired by the ambition of the Green Deal. So the Green Deal is an aspiration for Europe, but will be also guiding ambition for our relation also with the African continent. Many thanks. I stop here. Maybe there will be other questions and answer. Many thanks. Over to you.
Thank you. Many thanks, Carla, for giving us more insights on the comprehensive strategy with Africa that the Commission has and the EU has prepared, and also for giving more ideas where we stand with the preparations and the number of opportunities that you see for EU-Africa cooperation on the green transition. I would now like to invite Yuba to share his perspectives, and maybe also reflect a little bit about where you see opportunities for African countries to make the recovery green. To what extent is this, I mean, where do you see the biggest opportunities, but maybe also challenges? And what role for EU cooperation with the EU in that regard? Over to you, Yuba.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to take part to this conversation. And within 10 minutes, I will try to highlight some of the issues I think is important to consider. Let me start, first of all, to recall the key findings. One of the key findings of the IPCC latest report, in particular, the special report on 1.5, it indicated the need for a profound transformation in all aspects of the society, starting with far and rapid and far-reaching transitions in the energy sector, in land, urban infrastructure, and industrial systems. And we need the transformation on those areas as soon as possible. It's within that context that the COVID-19 pandemic erupted, and it brought a number of transformations in the society. It affected the economic sector, it affected the transport, it affected our social life, it affected everything in the society within the few months, say 2 or 3 months. It's in that context also that the world was thinking on urgent need for transformative solution that can bind the present trajectory toward a more sustainable future with greater well-being for all. I think in that context, there is a need to look at the African case and then to deconstruct the main narratives in the continent. And then some of the narrative in the continent, particularly in the energy sector, when people say that the access, and then some of the fragmentation of the approach of the energy sector, the project ad hoc intervention, the whole notion of electrification in the continent, particularly in rural area, and its lighting projects that became electrification project. And then to look at also the focus on the private sector, while the COVID indicated that's not a central fundamental role of the government, of the public sector. And then, and then to bring in the African narrative based fundamentally on energy for development. And then that gives a wide possibility and array of leapfrogging, because in the continent, the energy system needs to be built. It can be completely built differently from what we already have seen in industrialized economy, And in emerging economy, the centralized system, it could be a combination of part of centralized system, decentralized system, standalone system based on renewable that give a huge opportunity, but with the central notion of energy for development that's compatible with climate. And then to go beyond the characteristic and the dichotomy between mitigation here and adaptation there, but climate compatible development, because in the context of bringing energy, climate in the development area, there is no need and then to have that dichotomy between adaptation and mitigation. And it's important and then to have that thinking and that vision for the continent by the continent, how to promote the thinking and discussion around the central notion of energy in addressing priority of the continent, starting with the national development agenda. The aspiration of each of the countries starting with development rather than starting with the climate. And we also are in the context of Africa in the middle of the COVID. We are not thinking actually on the post-COVID, on the recovery, because we are in the middle, we have no idea what will be the impact in the 10 days to come, in the month to come, or in the year to come. We are in the middle of the COVID with a huge implication in all aspects of the society. And in that context, it's important and then to bring together the national development, the national aspiration, development aspiration, the Agenda 2063 of the continent that is aligned with the Agenda 2030. Many people are referring to Agenda 2030 while the Agenda 2063 is prior to Agenda 2030. And then to a large extent, the two have a lot of similarities. And then how it might be possible and then to make them compatible with climate. And then to look at what will be the time horizon in which we look at what progress has been made, we can make. You know, 2030, that was some of the, on the agenda 2060, on the agenda SDGs, but this is tomorrow. And then we may look at an horizon of 2050. And then to look at the problem in the continent, as I indicated, is not about the energy transition, it's to build the energy system. It's also to build the agricultural system, but focusing on small scale agricultural sector. And then if you look at the proliferation of the different projects and the program in the continent, there is a very few, not more than 1 or 2% of the project that look at those productive sectors, small scale agricultural system, what energy system is needed to fit that sector. Because having in mind that all the value chain of the agricultural sector, energy is a fundamental input to that. And then this is something, and this is a priority area we need to look at it. It is not about the transition, it's to build the system, and this is a key sector. The urbanization. And then we know also in the continent, the new stock of housing is much more important than the existing stock. It's a bit astonishing to look at a continent actually that we are building cement factories where temperatures are rising, and then where we have a lack of supply of electricity. And then if you build housing with concrete, that means you will need to have air conditioning, and there is a huge alternative, and there is possibility to look at that. And also in the continent, in the short term, how to address the fossil fuel dilemma. It's very important because some of the African countries just discover oil and gas, and then how it might be possible for them and then to look at what to do with those discovery and how that will be related to the economic development of the continent. This is something we need to have some thought about it, and then to look at also what role the natural gas can play at the small scale level. And then what lesson also can we learn from the outcome and consent of the various initiatives in place? Because if you look at in the past 10 years, there is a proliferation of initiatives. and then we just create new initiative to another initiative. And then particularly if you look at the African-EU relationship, and then how can you look at concretely what has been achieved, what has not been achieved, what was the problem, how the problem has been, how we can face those different problems. And it's important also to look at what are the participation of the various stakeholders in the thinking in this new era, in the new relationship between Africa and Europe. And then in short, just to, what I want to highlight is the need to have the African own narrative and how it's possible for European in the global context of solidarity, because we have seen also in the COVID that each of the countries are concentrating their own national boundary, their own national issues, rather than to look at a much more wider, broader aspect, and then to look at them. Those are some of the elements I just want to brought to the attention in order to stimulate the conversation. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Yuba. Very interesting to have your really broad perspective, but then also your reflection specifically on the energy transition. This is without any doubt a key sector that will play a huge role in the transition and will be a key for the transition. And it's probably also one of the big sectors where we need to discuss more what are the implications for EU-Africa cooperation, not least in light of carbon border tax issues, but also EU support for financial investments in energy transition in African countries. So many thanks for that. And I already see a couple of follow-up questions in the chat, so there will be more concrete questions on that in a minute. But first, let me invite Jean-Paul to join us and to share his reflections on opportunities and difficulties of the making the recovery green and what role for EU-Africa cooperation. Jean-Paul, the floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup de m'avoir donné la parole et merci beaucoup de l'occasion de participer à cet événement. Je vais faire mes remarques en français et c'est tellement un plaisir d'avoir cette opportunité. Alors tout d'abord, je pense que c'est important à réfléchir sur la situation en Afrique, même avant l'apparition de Covid-19 et de remarquer en fait que la situation africaine était très difficile même avant que Covid-19 soit avec nous. L'Afrique a été parmi les régions où la croissance était la plus rapide au monde. Nous pouvons noter une croissance en moyenne de 4,7% entre 2000 et 2017, qui est parmi les meilleurs rythmes de croissance enregistrés dans le monde. Cela a permis sans doute une réduction de taux de pauvreté, notamment le taux de pauvreté en Afrique ont diminué, passant de 54% à 41% selon la Banque mondiale. Mais il faut remarquer que cette diminution dans le pourcentage de personnes vivant dans la pauvreté, que le nombre absolu a quand même augmenté de 287 millions à 413 millions sur la même période, c'est-à-dire entre 2000 et 2017. Et c'est-à-dire que l'approche basée sur la croissance n'a pas marché pour l'Afrique en ce qui concerne le développement inclusif. Et c'est justement quand on va parler d'une reprise verte, il faut réfléchir à ce que ça veut dire. Ça veut dire bien sûr d'être conscient des impacts sur l'environnement et d'adresser surtout le changement climatique, mais c'est aussi de s'assurer que le développement vraiment touche à la grande majorité de la population et que le développement est inclusif. Et ce que nous avons remarqué, c'est que jusqu'à maintenant, les modèles de développement n'ont pas permis justement de transmettre tous les bénéfices aux populations africaines. Il y a des segments importants de la société qui ont été laissés pour compte. Les femmes et les jeunes en particulier ont eu très peu de possibilités d'emploi et de participation à l'économie. Et il faut noter qu'en 2012, selon certaines estimations, 72% des jeunes en Afrique vivaient avec moins de $2 par jour Et ça, c'est les chiffres de la BAD. Il faut noter aussi que la croissance et cette approche globale qui est fixée sur la croissance a eu un fort impact négatif sur l'environnement. À noter qu'en Afrique, l'Afrique a le taux annuel le plus élevé de pertes nettes de forêt entre 2010 et 2020. Et il y a une détérioration du capital naturel et de l'environnement en Afrique, malgré l'importance des services écosystémiques pour le bien-être d'une grande partie de la population. À noter que plus de 60% de la population des zones rurales d'Afrique dépend directement des écosystèmes pour son mode de vie. Et à noter aussi que les ressources marines et côtières de certaines régions d'Afrique contribuent à plus de 35% du PIB. Alors, la COVID-19 a accentué les difficultés existantes. Les projections faites par la CEA prévoient que 5 à 29 millions de personnes dans la région seront poussées dans l'extrême pauvreté par la pandémie. Et de même, les prévisions de la CEA estiment que l'impact du COVID sur la croissance varierait entre 1,4 à 5,8 points de PIB. À noter que le changement climatique avait déjà, même avant l'apparition de COVID-19, avait déjà un impact entre 3 à 5% sur le PIB annuellement des pays africains. Et dans certains cas, dans certains scénarios, l'impact sur le changement climatique pourrait aller jusqu'à moins 15% du PIB. Alors certainement, il faut agir et le contexte d'une reprise verte pour l'Afrique doit reconnaître ce point de départ qui est très défavorable pour l'Afrique. Et alors, en même temps que les investissements liés à une reprise verte en Afrique, ça va coûter beaucoup plus par rapport au point de départ, mais ça va coûter moins par rapport aux ressources totales dont on a besoin à investir. Et ça, c'est important parce qu'on a besoin de solidarité parce que le continent africain a très peu d'espace dans leur fiscalité. Ils ont très peu de ressources à investir justement dans la reprise verte qui est nécessaire. Et juste pour illustrer un peu cette problématique, les impacts d'événements climatiques ont un effet très dévastateur pour l'Afrique. On peut citer par exemple le cyclone Idai qui a déplacé plus de 3 millions de personnes juste en Mozambique. La sécheresse qui a duré 3 ans entre 2018 et 2020 en Afrique australe qui menace gravement la sécurité alimentaire de près de 10 millions de personnes. Et à noter aussi qu'en Afrique australe, ils dépendent aussi beaucoup des ressources hydro pour l'énergie et que cela a un impact direct sur la connectivité à l'électricité en Afrique australe. On peut noter aussi en Afrique de l'Est l'invasion de criquets récemment qui a un impact direct sur la sécurité alimentaire. Nous devons alors réfléchir à quoi va ressembler une reprise verte dans le contexte africain. Et cela nécessite d'abord des investissements pour exploiter d'une manière durable, dans le respect de l'environnement, les ressources naturelles de l'Afrique, inclus ses ressources marines, aquatiques, terrestres et aussi sa biodiversité. Il faut aussi viser des investissements qui réduisent les intrants en ressources et accroître l'efficacité du processus de production, réduire les émissions de déchets nocifs tels que les effluents chimiques et les gaz toxiques et renforcer les infrastructures pour réduire les impacts environnementaux. Et l'Afrique a besoin d'urgents d'investissements et peut-être à réfléchir sur quelques recommandations qui vont faciliter ces investissements et qui vont aussi faciliter que ces investissements soient en ligne avec les principes d'une reprise verte. Il faut renforcer et harmoniser les politiques, stratégies et plans nationaux pour assurer une reprise d'une économie verte. Suite à la pandémie, revoir les plans nationaux de développement et les autres stratégies sectorielles, ainsi que leur cadre budgétaire, afin d'intégrer une stratégie d'économie verte à faible émission de carbone, alignée avec les objectifs du développement durable, l'agenda 2063, et aussi avec les accords de Paris. Il faut aussi intégrer le capital naturel dans les cadres nationaux de développement et dans la prise de décision. Il faut comptabiliser leurs richesses naturelles et valoriser les services écosystémiques. Bien sûr, nous devons aussi réfléchir à la diversification des sources de financement et accroître considérablement le financement des investissements verts. Les gouvernements doivent démontrer l'exemple en augmentant les financements disponibles suite à la pandémie. Nous avons noté que le FMI et les différentes organisations de financement international ont mobilisé des fonds qui sont conséquents. Mais dans la situation de l'Afrique, il faut noter que tous ces fonds iront directement dans la réponse directe à COVID-19 et pas forcément à bâtir des infrastructures pour renforcer la résilience de ces pays. Et il faut renforcer alors les mécanismes et les facilités de financement qui prioritisent les investissements verts. On peut noter plusieurs exemples en Afrique, des fonds verts qui sont développés en Afrique du Sud. Il y a le mécanisme d'économie verte résiliente au climat en Éthiopie, le Fonds national pour le changement climatique au Rwanda. Il faut noter aussi la nécessité à mobiliser des financements et des crédits de la part du secteur privé. Nous pouvons réfléchir à des options sur des obligations vertes ou des obligations bleues. Mon pays, notamment les Seychelles, a mobilisé des obligations vertes, des obligations bleues en 2018. Et cela permet à travers, par exemple, des garanties partielles financières pour ces investissements qui viennent du secteur privé. Il faut aussi penser à supprimer les subventions aux énergies fossiles. Et en Afrique, cela compte à plus de 30 milliards de dollars. Et ces investissements pourraient être dirigés vers des investissements, par exemple, dans le secteur énergétique, sur le secteur des énergies renouvelables. Il faut aussi encourager les solutions fondées sur la nature. Elles ont un grand potentiel pour atténuer les émissions et aussi soutenir l'adaptation au changement climatique à moindre coût et aussi développer, par exemple, les opportunités sur l'écotourisme et aussi favoriser la restauration des zones humides qui est important pour l'eau et pour l'approvisionnement des villes et aussi en ce qui concerne les ressources naturelles. Il faut penser à une industrialisation verte qui est favorable à revoir les chaînes de production et les chaînes de valeur dans le contexte africain. Il faut penser à la transformation numérique et les investissements conséquents qui sont nécessaires dans les infrastructures qui permettent cela d'avoir lieu. Et il faut renforcer la coopération et les approches régionales et mondiales. Et c'est là justement où le partenariat avec l'Union européenne est très important. Et nous pensons que renforcer les relations entre l'Union africaine et l'Union européenne pour avoir un espace vert de prospérité partagée est très important. Et surtout en ce qui concerne en utilisant les perspectives de commerce, en mettant en valeur les chaînes de valeur mondiales et les liens avec les chaînes de valeur en Afrique pour renforcer la souveraineté économique de ces pays africains qui peuvent vraiment mettre en priorité cette reprise verte pour pas seulement lutter contre le Covid-19, mais pour vraiment transformer leurs économies. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Jean-Paul. Very interesting, and thank you also for giving us a bit the broader context on where we stand in terms of the socio-economic implications of COVID in African countries, but also for pointing out that even though we had a situation with strong growth in a number of African countries, this has not led to structural transformation in all places, and also has not trickled down to towards poverty reduction and really social improvements in many places. And I think we now also have a number of very concrete suggestions from your side on the table where EU and Africa can pick up on in terms of developing their cooperation further. So thank you for this first round. I think there's a lot to discuss on. And I see that there are already quite a number of questions from the audience. So I would like to start with a couple of questions from the audience going into more specific directions because the green transition is a very broad topic. I mean, it's about energy, climate, digital, trade, the social and green implications, so to say. So I think we should dig a bit deeper in a couple of areas, and I would like to be interested to hear your feedback on a couple of questions from the audience. So maybe you could also switch on your cameras again, and then we can exchange and go a bit deeper on a few points. So the first couple of questions come from Simon Maxwell, who would be interested first to hear more about implications of the EU's ideas on border carbon adjustments. There is a proposal on the table and controversial debates on that proposal, where the EU is thinking about reducing the carbon imports through a carbon tax, so to say. And so the carbon adjustment, the border carbon adjustment, is this seen as a threat or as an opportunity for African actors? And what practical steps could African actors take? And Simon is also asking whether they should retaliate this border carbon adjustment. Any views from the panel on that?
I can say something about it, because I think that in the African context, this is a bit difficult to establish because of the statistics, because also of the system, wider system in the African context. And also, it will be on the advantage of Africa, because most of the manufacturing products are imported in Africa, they're not exported, because the carbon content of what is exported from Africa is relatively limited.
Okay. Would somebody else like to come in?
Si vous permettez, je vais aussi aborder la question. Je crois que les systèmes d'échange de quotas d'émissions, notamment dans le contexte européen, je crois que le danger qu'il faut faire attention, c'est que ça soit un système qui est réservé pour l'Europe, mais en même temps, comme a dit le collègue M. Sokona, les exportations africaines, je pense, ne seront pas énormément affectées, sauf que bien sûr, en ce qui concerne les carburants. Mais d'une manière plus large, il faut un système d'échange de quotas à réfléchir si on réfléchit à ça sur le plan global. Ça pourrait être avantageux pour l'Afrique et ça pourrait même permettre à des solutions intégrées dans la nature, parce que globalement, l'Afrique produit moins de 4% en fait des émissions, même si l'Afrique compte pour 17% de la population. Alors, je pense que s'il y a un système d'échange de quotas d'émissions qui répond aux besoins de développement de l'Afrique, c'est plutôt quelque chose de positif pour l'Afrique. Mais bien sûr, il faut que ça soit lié aux besoins de développement en Afrique et surtout les besoins énergétiques. On a 600 millions d'Africains qui n'ont pas d'électricité. Alors, parmi les solutions pour investir dans l'électricité, il y a bien sûr les renouvelables, mais il y aura aussi, dans certains cas, des investissements sur des énergies qui sont non renouvelables. Merci.
Christine, maybe just a small remark from my side as well on this.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
I think any type of border carbon adjustment, of course, should be compliant with the rules of the WTO. And there, I think that the European Union should make sure that Africa is fully represented when these types of discussions are taking place. And at this moment, this is not yet the case. So it's very important that these things are really negotiated with all the different parties around the table. So Africa needs to have that seat and needs to be represented.
Yeah, that's a very important point. I mean, there's also, I guess, the question of whether it's across the board carbon border adjustment or whether it's focused on specific sectors, which would also have implications for African countries. I don't know.
Probably also for LDCs, there should be exemptions, of course. That's another part of the discussion. Yeah.
Yes.
And this should be discussed in the context of UNFCCC.
Absolutely.
Carla, would you also come in? I mean, I would be...
I think I don't have much more to add to what was said. It's true that the impact for Africa is quite limited at the moment. And I absolutely agree that the African partners have to participate in the debate. So it will remain important that we will have a certain transparency in everything that is carbon pricing, taxing, should be done in a transparent and fair way. And we need to use robust methodologies and including the social measures, and the African partners are to be part of this debate. But of course, it's have less impact at the moment because they are not the most polluter of between all the countries.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Yeah. I mean, one issue is this. I mean, this is a key point really of inclusion and participation in preparing initiatives. So could you say maybe one more sentence whether there is already lots of outreach and debates with African partners in developing the proposals around a carbon border adjustment forward, or how important that is a topic with partners at the AU right now?
We said that when we discuss about this, the impact of this, it's about the preparation for their role in the global debate, in the multilateral debate, and this is what is important. After we are working with them to look to what will be the focus of our cooperation. So where when we look to all this matter, where will be the focus on what we want to do with them on all the contexts that could be energy and the climate. I think there was one discussion previously on the energy and on the level of pollution, on the investment that was mentioned by Paul. Let me say that when we discuss with the partners, the ambitions will be now, of course, to increase investment, in the domain of the energy, but having in mind in any case, the respect of the principle, doing no harm, building back better to foster a green transition wherever possible. So to avoid, I would say, channel public support for investment and the development of carbon or resource-intensive economic activities. So we'll not see, we really want to avoid any solution that will not have a future in a low carbon or climate resilience society. So the focus now is on energy, but on, as I once said, was more focus on renewable in energy generation, on getting access, as was mentioned, on energy. This will remain our priority. For the carbon price, it's more about preparing them and using what we'll say the multilateral debate, to be present to the multilateral debate, to participate and in ensuring the transparency of the multilateral debate, because it will have an impact also in our partner countries in Africa. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. I see now a couple of questions in the chat related to the role of investments in propelling a green transition. And there are different dimensions to investments. One is we see that there is a debt issue, and African countries now face really a debt stress, and there is a question of what is going to be the fiscal space for more investments. So a few reflections from the panel on that would be helpful. What could be the role also of the EU in these debates at continent to continent, but also at the international level? But then there's also a question coming from a few participants related to if there's a lot of emphasis on large-scale investments, what role for small and medium enterprises in promoting a green transition? And what role for the informal sector? Because of course the informal sector also has a key role in many countries. So how to bridge these different areas? So maybe a few reflections from the panelists around these questions. Role of investments, what can be done given the limited fiscal space and the debt issue, and how can small and medium enterprises and the informal sector be brought in better in these initiatives? Who would like to come in on that?
Okay, let me come again. So that will stimulate the other to come in. And I think that the role of investment is important. And one have to look at the the type of investment and then to be adapted in the African context. Because as you know, a large part of the African countries, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, are least developed countries. In the least developed countries, there is a large number of micro, small scale and mid-sized enterprises. And then that's called largely in the informal sector. And then there is obviously a need of creating that specific element. This is why I indicated that it's important then to base everything in the African narrative. We cannot translate the other narrative in the African context. And then based on that reality, and then to see what kind of package is possible, and then to target and then those sectors, the so-called informal and other sectors. And it's important also in the African context, and then to look at the fiscal system in the continent, because there is very few African countries who are taking seriously and then the fiscal sector. For instance, I do not know in sub-Saharan Africa any who are taking profit of, on the fiscal system of the electronic communication and Google and YouTube and all those, social media system where there is a huge opportunity. There is an indication and to work on the fiscal system, and then how it might be possible to generate resources, and then that will feed the development sector.
Okay. Would others like to come in as well?
Si je pourrais intervenir. En ce qui concerne la question de la dette, je pense que c'est effectivement un des plus grands problèmes pour l'Afrique parce que le coût du financement n'est pas abordable. Si nous regardons dans l'histoire, à chaque moment qu'il y a eu un choc mondial, les pays qui ont pu répondre avec efficacité à ces chocs et à bâtir la résilience et réduire la vulnérabilité, ils ont besoin en fait d'investir et sur la base des crédits et des crédits qui étaient disponibles à des taux d'intérêt des taux d'intérêt qui sont très bas. On a besoin d'un plan Marshall en fait pour l'Afrique et pour le développement durable. Et le problème de l'Afrique, c'est que dans la majorité des cas, le coût de ces prêts, si c'est de l'argent qui sont empruntés par des gouvernements, le coût de ces prêts, c'est 2-3 fois plus cher que les pays développés. En ce qui concerne la CEA, nous avons demandé récemment, en partenariat avec d'autres institutions internationales, qu'il y ait un moratoire sur la dette dans un premier temps. Mais pendant que ce moratoire est en place, il faut réfléchir aussi dans certains cas à une annulation. Il faut penser aussi à des stratégies à reformuler cette dette. Le pays dont je suis d'origine, les Seychelles, nous avons fait une opération en 2015 en fait, pour l'échange de la dette contre l'adaptation climatique. En fait, c'est à travers des partenaires des ONG, nous avons pu mobiliser de l'argent pour acheter une partie de notre dette. Et en retour, nous avons investi l'argent qui était utilisé pour ces dettes dans l'adaptation pour le changement climatique, notamment par la création des aires marines protégées. Alors ça, c'est un exemple à très petite échelle aux Seychelles, mais il y a d'autres exemples que nous pouvons examiner. Mais la réalité des pays africains, surtout dans le contexte du Covid-19, c'est la nécessité de créer des emplois tout de suite. 60% des hommes sont dans des emplois informels en Afrique et 75% des femmes sont dans des emplois informels. Et alors, dans cette informalité de l'emploi, il y a, dans cette situation informelle, dans la situation de Covid-19, ces personnes n'ont pas de revenus. Alors, dans l'immédiat, c'est la nécessité de créer des emplois et c'est là où l'investissement a aussi un rôle très important. Mais encore, si c'est par exemple des gouvernements qui empruntent de l'argent sur le marché commercial, ça coûte beaucoup trop cher. Il y a la possibilité de mobiliser par exemple des financements mixtes, ce qu'on appelle en anglais blended finance, à travers des garanties partielles pour par exemple des obligations qui pourraient être faites par des pays pour mobiliser des investissements dans le développement durable. Le manque en ce qui concerne les financements est très large. En fait, déjà pour arriver aux objectifs du développement durable, on avait estimé à la CEA qu'on avait besoin de 63,8 milliards de dollars par année pour arriver aux objectifs du développement durable en Afrique. Avec Covid-19, ce chiffre est monté à 92,8 milliards. Alors, les besoins en financement sont énormes. Il faut qu'on mobilise du secteur privé, il faut le secteur gouvernemental et il faut aussi adresser la dette à travers les moratoires, mais aussi à travers l'annulation dans certains cas. Merci.
Carla, did you also want to come in?
Just apparently, some people are complaining they do not have translation. I don't know if it's French or English.
Christine, if you may, it's just we have a problem of the disconnection of our translator from French to English, I believe, or both of them, but we are trying to solve it. Please be patient, all the participants, and we are very sorry for this.
Okay. Carla, did you also want to come in on the debt issue or how to take forward initiatives like the external investment plan? What is the role for green investments and working more with small and medium enterprises or the informal sector in that regard? Maybe there's a problem with her connection. Yes, she has moved to Damien's link to join us. Okay. Well, then maybe move to one more provocative question coming from Simon. One, I mean, we discussed a number of key sectors for the green transition. Energy, digitalization, agriculture to some extent. But there's also the role of potential role of tourism, which has a great place in a number of African countries. So there's a question, long distance international tourism is really a challenge for climate. Should the EU ban its citizens from going on holidays in Africa, or should African countries ban European tourism in order to make a contribution towards climate change? Rather provocative question, but maybe somebody still wants to come in on that. Or Carla, if you want to now come in on the previous point, also most welcome.
Sorry, I didn't realize that I was cut, but my voice was cut. But just to say, just to add, of course, this question of the debt is really relevant. and even more for us, because as you know, in the current portfolio, we have foreseen a lot of support for what was called just a minute ago, the blended operation. So of course, we need to pay attention that in supporting the investment, we are not playing to increase the debt. So the analysis of the debt for each country, it's really relevant for us. But of course, this is the reason why we have also foreseen this new instrument about the guarantees. And let me say that also we have used this guarantee during this COVID phase. As you know, Europe has reacted very quickly on the EU answer to support the partner countries and also our African partners, using all our system of guarantees, just to have the possibility to increase the fiscal space in the government, just in order to come to a quick support to the small and medium enterprise. So we have used the guarantees to alleviate the business, the impact on the business, on the formal sector also, and on the small and medium enterprise. Giving much more liquidity or working capital, and this is something for which we will continue to use in the future. So the work in the order to incentivize not just the role of the states, of the government with a sovereign lens, but also using new financial instruments that can stimulate and incentivize the intervention of the private sector directly. This will be important. I think that it was already mentioned to have this sort of exchange between debt and climate objective, or between debt and sustainable investment. We are thinking what could be the proposal that we can come on the table. Because we are, of course, we are aware on the fact that investment will be important, but we will have to focus on the green investment, and we will have to pay attention to avoid the increase of the level of the debt. Sorry, this is what I want to say compared to the previous debate. Over to you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I say something in reaction to what was said? Because I find this very interesting. We are in a discussion on how we can generate this impressive amount of almost 100 billion that has even been increased now with COVID-19. But I'm always a bit surprised that we talk about aid, ODA, debt cancellation. Excellent, very good that we do all this blended financing. But there is quite some role to be played, and I think Yuba also pointed to that, to do the necessary reforms as well of the tax administrations. In African countries, we see that tax rates in general are not higher than 10–15%. There is some work to be done there as well. So this calls for reform of central state structures, governance, you could call it. And I think it's very important as well to take this into consideration. There is money around in Africa, and we need to also build on that component. Yeah,
absolutely right. If I can quickly react, just to say, because I would like to avoid that we focus just on investment, but you mentioned before the external investment plan. In reality, our approach to investment
No, I can't hear you.
My audio it's changed automatically. So sorry. So I start again. So I just want to react on this because of course I don't want to see us a partial view. I was talking about investment, but in reality our approach is just what was said. This I will say a three-pillar approach. So on one side, it's looking to how to incentivize investment, how to support investment, sovereign or private sector. But the second big pillar is how we continue to support reform the governments, how we can create a better in climate investment for the private sector to come to invest private sector that will be in the partner countries and the international. But this will be really the part of the governance. It's really an important strand of work. The third part is, of course, everything that is linked to the capacity building, because we are talking about investment, but sometimes the real issue that we have is the capacity to promote, to identify good investment or sustainable investment, and to have a good pipeline of investment projects. So at our level, to your level, when in our relationship with the partner countries, it's key, this three-pillar approach. Sorry, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking a bit at the time because we are slowly moving towards the end of the seminar. So I think this question on tourism is more for a take home. But I would like to, before I hand over to Sébastien for some final remarks and reflections, I would like to ask each of you to have one sentence or say one sentence with regard to the EU-AU summit that is planned for the end of October. When would it be a success for you in light of the green transition? So for me, the EU-AU summit would be a success for the green transition if, Jean-Paul, maybe you start this time.
Merci beaucoup. Je crois que d'abord, il faut penser aux 600 millions d'Africains qui n'ont pas d'accès à l'électricité. Alors, si nous arrivons à mobiliser une stratégie pour investir surtout dans les énergies renouvelables, pour connecter ces 600 millions d'Africains, c'est un point de départ parce que aussi à travers l'investissement dans l'énergie, et on crée des opportunités pour les entreprises, pour les PME, on crée la possibilité d'investir dans la transformation numérique. C'est vraiment un pilier en fait des investissements dans le développement durable d'une manière plus large. Alors pour moi, si on doit focaliser peut-être sur un secteur, c'est le secteur énergétique, mais il y a beaucoup d'autres bien sûr, mais je pense de pouvoir mobiliser les financements nécessaires dans ce secteur, ça permet aux autres secteurs de suivre. Et bien sûr, ces investissements doivent venir des gouvernements. C'est impératif, il y aura besoin aussi d'aide, des aides au financement, des financements concessionnels. Il y a bien sûr l'opportunité d'adresser aussi les flux illicites pour mobiliser davantage de financement pour l'Afrique. Mais à mon avis, l'investissement dans l'énergie, c'est le premier pas à faire. So very quickly in English, because I know there's no translation, I think investing in energy is the cornerstone that allows other parts of the Sustainable Development Goals to come into play. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yuba, over to you. For you, the summit is a success if
there is a deal on energy for development, in particular the small-scale agricultural system in Africa. Energy for development in the productive sector, but the agenda should be set by African agenda.
Okay, thank you. Carla, for you, summit would be a success if?
And this will be crucial, but I in fact agree with both what was said. So it will be crucial, it will be successful if we succeed to arrive to a common vision on how we can progress on these key elements for the development of the African continent. One is, I agree, is absolutely the energy, because with energy we can do everything. And the second part is clear to convene also on what it could be the use of the natural resources. So to avoid to lose the natural capital, and this will have an impact, of course, on the agriculture, on the biodiversity, on the ecosystem. I think these three elements that are the key elements of course, also of the Green Deal will be essential. But to arrive at them, it will be successful if we will arrive to the summit with a common vision on the next step. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Geert, and for you, it would be a success if?
Well, I think the Green Deal is a good document, but the most important challenge will be to make sure that the Green Deal narrative is sensitive to the Africa's concerns. And there I'm happy to see that Africa is preparing its response. And I hope that the summit will have a kind of negotiated deal on this very important issue rather than an imposition by one side to the other side. So we need to have a real negotiated deal on this. And my feeling is that the African side is preparing well on this particular issue. So this can be very interesting. And we will have a deal at the end of this process, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. That's all right. Common vision.
Okay, many thanks to all panelists and also to the audience for very interesting questions. Now over to Sébastien for concluding reflections.
Merci beaucoup Christine, merci beaucoup à tous nos intervenants. Je me permets d'intervenir en français parce qu'on nous fait souvent la remarque qu'il est utile que nos séminaires, notamment dans le contexte africain, soient à la fois francophones et anglophones. Et je remercie tous nos intervenants d'avoir utilisé la langue qui leur était la plus simple. Yuba, merci d'avoir utilisé l'anglais alors que tu es évidemment bilingue. Plus que bilingue, mais en tout cas dans ces deux langues. Donc je voulais vraiment souligner l'importance pour nous, le groupe des think tanks sur le développement à l'échelle européenne, ETTG, de cette discussion. C'est absolument important pour nous de pouvoir échanger avec les penseurs clés et les acteurs clés en Afrique qui préparent aussi le sommet Europe-Afrique pour qu'on puisse arriver à cet accord, à ce deal dont parlaient Geert et Madame Montesi juste dans leur dernière remarque. C'est absolument essentiel que le partenariat entre égaux, entre l'Europe et l'Afrique, soit vraiment incarné par le fait que les demandes, les besoins, les propositions soient le plus symétriques possible. Et je retiens vraiment de notre conversation aujourd'hui le fait qu'il faut qu'aujourd'hui, l'Union européenne a exprimé une forme de proposition juste avant la crise du Covid. Maintenant, il est absolument essentiel qu'on entende les besoins tels qu'ils sont exprimés par l'Union africaine et par les pays africains. Et je pense qu'on ne dira jamais assez qu'il faut mettre l'agenda 2063 en premier. Yuba Sokona et Jean-Paul Adam l'ont répété. Et c'est bien le processus dans lequel on essaye de s'intégrer, par exemple, avec ce webinaire. Moi, je pense qu'il est important d'entendre des mots-clés sur lesquels on peut se raccrocher. La transformation structurelle de l'économie, la diversification des économies et notamment la diversification par rapport aux exportations de matières premières non transformées. Il y a derrière ça et derrière la construction d'une zone de libre-échange continentale, la construction d'un marché intérieur, des besoins auxquels on peut essayer de répondre avec des éléments qui sont déjà contenus dans l'offre européenne, mais qui ne s'appellent pas forcément Green Deal ou transition verte en premier lieu. Et il y a moyen de trouver un point de rencontre très important autour de ça. Si on ajoute à ça les besoins liés à la crise du Covid en matière d'emploi, de soutien j'allais dire à une forme de formalisation, en tout cas à cette économie qui est aujourd'hui informelle grâce à un processus d'industrialisation, on a des éléments derrière ça et je pense que M. Sokona, M. Adam, Mme Montesi l'ont tous souligné, l'accès équitable à une électricité durable, je dis bien électricité presque plus avant que l'énergie, c'est bien ce qui déclencherait l'industrie, un élément que beaucoup d'experts identifient comme le verrou qui permettrait de déclencher l'industrialisation du continent. Et on voit bien que les énergies renouvelables ont un gros potentiel, parce qu'elles sont souvent non centralisées, de permettre un accès à l'électricité à la fois durable, équitable et rapide. C'est tout le message de Sustainable Energy for All, qui aujourd'hui, on le salue, est présidé par une personnalité africaine, et je pense que c'est vraiment important. On pourrait dire la même chose sur le secteur agroalimentaire. Il ne s'agit pas juste de développer l'agriculture, mais de développer la transformation dans le secteur agroalimentaire et des chaînes de valeur qui s'orientent aussi vers le marché intérieur africain. Et derrière ça, ce que l'Europe a développé avec la stratégie de la fourche à la fourchette, farm to fork, pourrait être des points de convergence très forts. Et donc, il me semble qu'il y a là des points de convergence qu'on pourrait souligner si on repart des besoins tels qu'ils sont exprimés par les pays africains et par l'Union africaine. Et donc, il y a évidemment besoin de qualifier quelles sont la nature des investissements, qu'est-ce qu'on veut soutenir, quels sont ces plans nationaux de développement à partir de ces besoins exprimés à l'échelle nationale. Mais on a eu toute une discussion aussi sur les instruments nécessaires. Il y a besoin de soutenir les investissements à un moment où la dette devient un gros problème ou une limitation. le peu d'espace fiscal des gouvernements africains est un problème. Et je pense que là, on a les moyens d'avoir aussi une conversation très précise sur comment est-ce que l'appui de l'Union européenne dans cette solidarité internationale, en appui à ce plan Marshall pour l'Afrique, qu'appelait M. Adam, comment est-ce que l'Union européenne peut aller dans ce sens-là? Simon Maxwell demandait quelle est la part du plan de relance européen des 750 milliards qui va aller à l'aide à l'Afrique. Et je pense que là, il y a pour l'instant, ce n'est pas zéro, hein, je ne me souviens plus du montant exact, mais il y a bien une rubrique qui est prévue là-dessus et ça me semble important de souligner que la relance européenne est pensée aussi dans la solidarité avec l'Afrique. Bon, la question, c'est est-ce que les instruments sont à la bonne hauteur et comment est-ce qu'on va travailler sur l'enjeu de la dette et aussi sur le rôle de l'État et la capacité de l'Europe à appuyer la construction des systèmes fiscaux dans les pays africains. Je pense que là, il y a eu un élément très important de la discussion que je voulais souligner. Mon dernier point, parce que je vois que l'heure tourne, je vais essayer de ne pas parler plus vite pour autant pour que les traducteurs ne m'en veuillent pas trop et que je reste compréhensible. Je pense que la question commerciale est évidemment un gros point d'interrogation avec l'idée que le Green Deal, le pacte vert, pourrait être soit des barrières tarifaires directes, comme on les a discutées autour de la taxe carbone aux frontières, soit une barrière non tarifaire à la capacité du continent africain à exporter vers l'Europe. Et il me semble que vous avez tous dit qu'il faut poser le débat différemment, à un moment où la mondialisation est de toute façon remise en cause par un certain nombre de grands blocs, et que si on réfléchit au partenariat entre le marché commun européen et la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, on a probablement des choses à construire ensemble à partir du moment où on réfléchit à ça, pas de manière unilatérale. Il me semble que là, il y a à la fois des perspectives intéressantes dans la discussion entre l'Europe et l'Afrique. Et je pense que si on arrive à parler de ça au sommet Europe-Afrique, ça sera un succès, pour essayer de répondre à la question de Christine. Je pense que si on arrive à bien positionner la question commerciale pour positionner le partenariat Europe-Afrique de la bonne manière sur cette question commerciale, ça sera une des clés du succès, à mes yeux en tout cas. Et aussi d'une manière dont ensuite on pourra retourner voir la Convention 4 des Nations Unies sur le changement climatique, comme le soulignait M. Sokona, ou alors l'OMC et d'autres cadres de négociation commerciale de manière coalisée, avec une bonne coordination entre les deux continents. Et c'est mon dernier point, c'est la discussion géopolitique. Je pense que ça a été introduit, je crois, tout au début. L'Europe a besoin de l'Afrique pour soutenir le multilatéralisme. Je pense aussi que l'Afrique a besoin de l'Europe pour soutenir le multilatéralisme à un moment où il est chahuté, où il est bousculé par un certain nombre de grandes puissances à l'échelle mondiale. Mais je pense aussi qu'on a besoin que l'Europe et l'Afrique se mettent ensemble pour discuter avec d'autres blocs. Qu'il y ait une discussion Europe-Afrique-Chine pourrait être quelque chose de très intéressant si on arrive à parler de la dette, par exemple, comme ça a été mis en place dans le G20, l'idée de pouvoir parler de la dette africaine ensemble avec les Chinois, les Européens et les Africains. Il y a là des pistes sur lesquelles on pourrait travailler que je me permets d'introduire à la dernière minute alors qu'il est déjà 18h05. Je vous remercie en tout cas tous. Merci beaucoup à Christine d'avoir animé avec autant de brio cet exercice pas toujours facile. Merci à Khelf d'avoir lancé les propos. Un grand merci à nos trois intervenants pour vous être mobilisés. Monsieur Sokona, Madame Montesi, Monsieur Adam, merci beaucoup pour tout ça. À toute l'équipe de ETTG et de l'IDRIT qui a rendu ce webinaire possible et à tous nos participants qui ont posé des questions à la fois impertinentes, pertinentes, provocantes, mais très utiles pour la suite de ce partenariat entre l'Europe et l'Afrique. Merci beaucoup à tous.